Welcome along, it's Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. Welcome back. And once again, we are looking at another fundamental part of this Stratos. Now, you will have already seen, or you may have already seen, if you haven't, go back and have a look. I've done a video on how to modify these disc brakes so that you can actually get the veins, the grooves in the discs going the right way. The way Italeri actually make them, you have all four discs with the grooves going, if you think of it that way, as a clockwise direction. Hang on, there we go. You can see those grooves are, it's very difficult to see because of the white plastic. These are actually stripped. There's another 2 videos on doing that as well. But these are all going that way, so they all fan that way. So that would be correct for a wheel turning anti-clockwise. So in other words, the front left wheel, that would be the front left side. That would be correct if you want the vanes to sweep through the brake pads. If you want the vanes to cut through the brake pads, then it would be the right hand side. But whatever you do, they shouldn't be the same on both sides. And Italeri have made these with all the vanes going the same way, which is, in my opinion, as I said in my review, it's inexcusable. It's a very, very silly little mistake. And they did the same on the Delta Integrale. That's almost excusable because they made 2 sort of B sprues or whatever they are, and both sprues are the same, so you obviously get the disc the same. But what they should have done is made each disc go each way on each sprue, so you've had the it's a schoolboy error, and I think it's terrible that they've repeated it on this one again, because a lot of people would have moaned about that. Right, so what I've done a video and showed you basically how to correct it. So going on from that, I was looking at this and thinking, I know that the Delta Integrale has some issues with wheels being very floppy and everything, so I thought I'll have a look at this and see what this one's like. And this one is a lot better, but as you can see from this instruction, okay, what I'm going to show you here is we have the upright. Okay, I haven't assembled any of this, I've just got the plastic part, this part here, 34M. So we've got the upright here, okay, and then we've got this inner piece going in, and we have to super glue a nut into there. Alright, you don't actually need to super glue it in because this part going in behind will hold it in, but they ask you to super glue it in, so I've super glued it in anyway. And then that's going to go inside there, and this part here, 114M, is going to take that part, 82M, and then that part there, they're telling you to glue it to the actual disc here. So when you screw your wheel on, everything will turn, so the disc will turn with that part, and this will be glued to the upright and sort of be the bearing carrier for that. This piece here will come in behind and glue into the back of there, and that will actually be your drive shaft. So your drive shaft will turn or whatever. So we'll have to check if the drive shafts actually turn. You can see here they go on the gearbox. We have to check if that part is actually designed to turn. Maybe this part isn't designed to be glued in. But we can have a very quick look now. Yes, it is designed to turn. So you've basically got a lock differential in there, if you like. So if you want to glue it all up, you will have it so when you turn one wheel, the other side will turn as well. So that'll be very realistic if you like playing with your models. So basically, yeah, you've got that glued to that, sandwiching that in between, and your wheel will screw into this nut in here. Okay. So if you look at it, they've got these instructions are just bloody awesome, guys. They are brilliant. They've given us a beautiful cutaway diagram of how all this goes together, which is really, really nice. Now I'm going to have to get a pointer and come quite close to the camera. So you can see straight away we've got a problem here, because here they've shown us a gap. So between this piece here, so that's that part there, 36D, and that part there, 82M, there is a gap. We also have a gap here. Okay, so that's between this edge here of 82M and the inner edge of 114M. So basically what's going to happen there, when we screw our wheel on, it will pull the disc brake up against this piece here, there. Okay, so it's closed up there. But now we've got all this clearance in here, so that will move in and out. So therefore, our wheels will be able to move in and out and will probably be quite floppy. So I'm going to show you how it works, okay? So simply, I'll show you on this one first because it's easier to hold. So this is for the front wheels. It's the same design, it's just that you can see this piece is shorter on the front. So if I hold that in from behind like that, hold that nice and solid, you can see that we have a location in the back of the disc brake that this piece goes into. So what they're telling you to do is glue that piece in there nice and solid. Okay, so if I push that up against there, what I should have done actually is got a screw, and then I could screw it up against the disc. But you can see that's how much protrudes when this part is up against the wheel. But if I put some pressure behind, you will see that that comes all the way out. So basically, with that held all the way out there, which is rather difficult to do, but I hold that like that. Okay, so with that held out like that, you can see that when that disc goes on, it's got a lot of rocking motion in there. All right, it probably would be easier to show you with the back one actually, because there's more there to hold. Let me get a sanding stick and push it into there and hold that. There we go. Right, so that's held out now all the way. So you can see that that is sticking out a lot more than the recess in the disc there. So when the disc goes on, it locates. You can see it has all this play. There's nothing supporting it. But when it's screwed up, I'm not sure how much play it will have, but you will have all that movement there. You can see I'm moving that piece in and out. You'll have all that movement there. So what we need to do is basically when we assemble this, we need to push this part up against the inside of here, and then what we can do is remove material from the front of here so that when it screws up, the disc is actually also resting on here. So what we're trying to do is have it like this, so that the disc is contacting this piece here, and then that gap there closes up and that gap there closes up. So everything is nicely up together. Now if we take the upright and we put this piece in behind, and then we fit this hub on like that, okay, I can use my digital caliper and I can measure that that is sticking out 1.43 millimeters. So I'm holding that part on, and I've got that part in there behind my finger, and I'm pushing that up against it, and it's 1.5, 1.4 millimeters, something like that. Okay, now if I push that part out, I hold that and push that part out, you can see we have 2.1 millimeters. So what we need to do is pack this out 0.6 millimeters so that when it's all together, everything is held. Okay, we don't want it all flopping around, because otherwise, as I say, the wheels will be like this. All right. The other way, of course, you could do it if you want to. If you want to get the widest track, you could put a washer on here to space out, to take up the gap, so that when you pull it down, it pulls it up against there. But if we want to glue this into here and have this supported in the back of here, then, or have it all floating or whatever, then basically we need, that's the wrong one, we need to pack it out. So what I want to do, I'm going to start off with a piece of 0.5 and see how we get on. I'm going to cut a piece of 0.5 plastic card and glue it to the end of there. We could use plastic rod and slice it off, but it's very difficult to get it parallel. It's much easier to grab a piece of 0.5 plastic, which I bet I can't put my hand on now, because it's always the way, especially when the camera's on. I think that's 0.5. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to cut a little piece of this out. So we'll just cut out a square. In fact, we'll cut a piece off of this end, just like that. And then with the drop of extra thin quick setting, okay, we can just put a drop on there, just like so, and then push that down on there, pick it up, make sure we've got all the edges covered, okay, and just leave that to dry. Remember, it's just a packing piece, it doesn't need to be glued in there solid. The objective here is to have this piece here floating in there, but glued to this part, so that when we actually turn the wheel, everything turns just like real life. Okay, so we'll see how we get on. Now obviously, if you're building one of these, I would wait to see how I get on with getting this together before you start doing this, because it may be that I mess something up. It could be that Italeri have put this play in here for a reason, but I find that hard to believe, because every kit Italeri, every 12 scale kit I've ever seen Italeri do, there's always loads of play in everything. So we're going to have the same with all these joints here. There's going to be loads of play, and it's all going to be flopping about and stuff. So we'll have to look at what we can do about that at the time. Alright, so must have had a miscalculation along the way. I've ended up gluing another piece of 10 thou card on this. So that's like 0.75 millimeters now. In fact, my 0.5 card was a little thin, so it's more like 0.7. The thing is, though, don't take my numbers as gospel. You need to check your model, because I'm sure that the depth of the back of these parts is not going to be identical, because there's 4 of them on one sprue. They're not like, you know, it's not 4 sprues of one part. They would all be identical then. But and also it depends if you've got any little bits of super glue excessed over where you've glued the screw in. But basically now what I can do is put that through there, okay, and then push this on here, and I can hold this part here, M11, M114. I can hold that on there, and as you can see, if I use my nippers just to, as a pinching device, you can see we have no, I'm going like this, we have no movement, yet I can still turn it all very easily. Now, as I say, I could just actually put it together like that and leave that back piece loose. Okay, so you can see that if I take that back piece out, okay, we've got lots and lots of play in there. But if I put that back piece back in, that will actually hold it all together. Okay, so what I want to do now is actually glue this actual piece here, M114. I'm going to glue that onto the upright. Okay, I'm going to use ordinary Tamiya extra things. I think it gives you a stronger joint. And I'm going to use plenty of it, and I'm going to make sure that piece is pushed forward away from the edge. You don't want to go gluing it up. And then I'm going to put some more, it's too much on there, I'm going to put some more around here. Okay, it will capillary anyway, but we want to make sure that's nice and strong, that joint, because that's taking all of the weight of the car. Alright, and then we can put some super glue on those two and sand them out should we want to. We've basically got that in there now, and if we push that piece in behind, that holds it nice and we can turn everything. Now what we need to do is glue that in there, but before I do that I want to drill it out. I've got a 1.4mm drill here, so I'm just going to very gently draw this plastic card away, because basically the screw comes right through, I think. So basically that is butted up against the back of that nut. So we need to make sure we have clearance for the screw to go through. There we go. As you can see, it's not very centered. That's because what I've done here, I haven't sanded the edge of this plastic card perfectly. All I've done is gone around with a pair of cutters and just cut away the plastic. So what I might do actually is see if I can pull that hole over a bit, because it looks like we've probably got some draft on the pin or something. So there we go. That's better. Just get it all lined up with the black plastic behind it. So probably could have used a 1.6mm drill or something. So basically now, yeah, that'll go in behind there. Okay, and that is held nice and solid. So what we can do now is wait for that to dry, and then we can screw the disc on, and we can see if we've got any play. If we don't have any play, then we don't need to worry about it. If we have play, then we can either make some washers up to go in there, some spacers to space it out like we did with the Delta, or we can just sand away this sticking out here to get the disc to go up against the back. Now if you look here, so that you might be saying, oh, but the caliper won't fit now. Yes, it will. The caliper will fit, and as you can see, with the all the way out like that, you can see the disc brake is way over to one side of the caliper. So if we sand away some of that hub, we'll still get the caliper in. So what we can do there is just sand away the front of that, keep it nice and square, and just remove material until we get the same. So here we have we have 2.24 millimeters sticking out there. If we measure the disc, if we go down to the bottom of that recess, we have 6.41, 5.22, so that's only 1.2 millimeters deep, and that is 2.4. So we've got to remove, sorry, that's 2 mil, 2.1. So we've got to remove about 1 millimeter from there, or just under, and then that part there, this part here of the disc, will sit up against, that's not super glue on there guys, that's black pen, you can see. That will sit up against here, which will give you some support and stop the wheel wobbling, so you won't end up with wheels all over the place, which is what happens on the Delta. If you haven't seen my build of the Delta, go back. I haven't done a full build because I just put it back in its box, because in the end it drove me crazy. But basically with the Delta, you screw the wheels up and they just lock solid. So what I did was made some shims up to get everything nice and stop it all flopping about. But there we go, that's that one done. Alright, so what we could do now is glue that in there, which will be dead dodgy. What we could do is just put a drop of super glue on the end and just glue it in. But I think I'd like to deal with those 2 pinholes first. So what we could do is just put a drop of super glue on the end and glue it in, and that way everything's nice and solid then, and you don't have any of this play. If you don't glue that in, alright, in fact, yeah, the disc will stop it going in, won't it? But if you don't glue that in, again, with your disc brake fitted, if the drive shafts don't hold it, you'll still be able to do that. Like you can see I can push the, if I hold it like that, that's how much play you will have as per the standard kit. So in fact it'd be even more than that because I spaced it out, didn't I? So it's not ideal. Anyway, so what they should have done is made this piece here with a shorter stub on it, and then when you screw the wheel up it would pull the wheel up against that hub. So there's a little bit of a little tiny bit of flash on there as well, so we'll just cut that away as well. There we go. Right, back in a minute. Okay, so front piece is glued on there. I've cut it around, drilled it out. I ended up changing to a 1.6 drill instead of the 1.4. I also need to get in the back of there, look, and get some big ejector pin marks there. So that's something else we need to deal with. So here's the front one, so I can push that on, and as you can see, we've basically got, I've gone the other way now so you can see what's going on. You can see we've got rock on there. So it's too long. So what I'm going to do now is just with a sanding stick, is just very lightly sand this bush, or this piece of plastic card, until we end up with putting this down and we have no rock. You can see the rock has been reduced. If we want to, we can use the caliper, vernier calipers, and measure the depth, and it's 3.55, and the height of this will be more than that, 3.66. So if we can take 0.1 off of here, okay, we need to try and keep it nice and square, so change direction, and that way if you are following an angle on it, then you'll see what you're doing, or you'll not take it out. 3.55, 3.48. So remember, this is not a RC car, it's not a moving vehicle. You don't have to worry if you've got a bit of a taper, it's not going to wear out fast or anything, because you're not going to be, well, I hope you're not going to be running around the floor with this. Now I can feel a bit of resistance, so we need to take a bit more off now. As I say, we had a taper, so that side is 3.52, that side is 3.59. So what we're going to do is sand from this side, because what it was, I measured it before and it was about 0.4, so I've used a piece of 0.5 plastic card, knowing that I'd have to sand it down. So if I glue that in place, that turns, but it's a little bit too tight for my liking, so I'm just going to take a bit more off the back of here, just a touch. There we go, that's better. Right, so what we can do now is just make sure that is going up against it correctly. It does have a little bit of a rock on it, so I'm wondering now if we need to just sand this back face, because the edges on a lot of these plastic parts are awful. Like I said, this kit is like something from the 1980s. So I'm going to take a bit more off of there again. And then put that on there. And I'm sure that's all good. Right. So we'll take some extra thin and cement that on. Just like so. We've got no worries about glue because we know that the back of that part is nowhere near the edge. So we can put plenty of glue on there. Just once again, just check that that's turning nicely. And it is. Actually, it still feels a little tight, so I'm just going to remove that. I'm going to sand some more off of here. I'd rather have a tiny bit of play than have it too tight. There we go. So when we screw the disc on, you can see it's going to fit on there lovely. We may have some play in it, but at least it's not all floating about. Right, and just to show you the difference, I've got the other side off here, and then what we'll do, we'll say goodbye. I just want to show you the difference. Okay, so with that like that, you can see if I use my tweezers, you can see how much. I use my calipers, it's better to use calipers. You can see how much that moves in and out, and that's how much play you'll have in your wheel, and it will probably give you some rock as well. So that's why I've done it. Okay, so there we go. That's still a touch stiff, but it turns freely if I grip it in there like that, so that's okay. Once it's all together. I mean, we don't need to roll along the ground and play with it or anything, but I just don't want it too stiff, because otherwise you roll it and it tends to undo the screw. So there we go. Right, this one's all good, I think. Yeah, and I've actually started on this one as well. Let's get the other side done. So don't go gluing your disc brakes on yet, because you want to be able to paint your uprights and your discs separate. At the end of the day, you don't really need to glue your discs at all, because just noticed there's some flash in that one. You don't really need to glue your discs at all, because the actual wheel will hold them on. So if you're not worried about the disc falling off when you take the wheel off, because I don't think the caliper will hold it on. This is the wrong side. I'll show you something else in a minute. Yeah, the caliper's not going to hold it on, the disc is just going to fall off. Yeah, that disc is just going to fall off. So don't glue your calipers on yet, don't glue your wheels on. In fact, I think it might actually just hold it on. Yeah, I think it might actually hold it on. So you don't need to glue the wheel to that hub. But I'm going to keep these separate in case we end up with different thicknesses. And I'm just going to, I notice we've got flash on the front of there as well. You need to really check with this kit, guys. Every single surface has got a mold, edge, seam, bit of flash, bit of a mold imperfection. I don't know if you can see on there close up, that's got a ring around it. So just get rid of that. There we are, we're all done. So I'm going to get the other side done, and then I'll see you back with another video maybe one day. I mean, I said I'm not going to build this. Oh, one thing I did just want to show you. This was part of the tooling. You can see the end of that. That's how it should look. It should be like that on both ends. But this one's, as you can see, it was all broken open, like the tool closed again and it pushed open or something. So I've just glued it together like it is. I'll get some super glue in there, fill it in, fill the hole, and then just sand it flush. We have to sand away that seam there anyway. There are no decals for the brake calipers, I don't think. I'm not even sure if they put decals on them in those days. But they're very nicely moulded. They got the caps in the back where they took them apart. So yeah, but they've got a massive, huge, wide gap in them. You can see the disc goes in like that. You can see that they've given you enough room for some nice big brake pads anyway. Right, so just to finish up here, guys, if you remember, I said I was going to shorten these stubs so you can see. If we look at the rears, I won't look at the fronts at the moment because they've got super glue all over them. But if you look at the rear, you can see that this one here, the stub is sitting out. That stub is sitting out of there by about 2.15 millimeters, and this one will be about 1.2, 1.3, 1.25. Okay, and as you know, we measured these before. We know they're about 1.2 millimeter deep. So if I actually screw, if I take the long one and I fit that disc onto there, and I put this horrible slotted screw in, I don't know why they can't use bolts. I really don't. You can get bolts this small. Tamiya do them in their kits, but they will use these horrible slotted screws. The other thing that hasn't been thought of, there is no way of stopping that nut on the inside that's glued into that plastic piece. There is no way of stopping it turning. So as you can see, that is tightened up, I think. Let's just check that it is tightened up. I'm sure that's tightened up because there's no end play in it, but you can see here, this is the problem. If I have that shaft pushed up tight against it, so if my finger here is the drive shaft, as you can see there is no end float. But if the drive shafts have a bit of play in them, then we will have that much end float, and we'll also have a little bit of wobble. It's better than the Stratos, the Integrale, I must admit, but it's still got a bit of flop in it. So we want to get that out. So what we do is file that down, and now I won't be able to get this screw out, I bet. Oh no, it's coming out, blimey. What I'm doing, I'm pushing this in at the back, which is stopping it turning. So I can get this screw out, okay, and then we'll take the same disc, we'll put it on this hub. Okay, keep that one pressed in. We'll screw this screw in here. Remember, this is the shortened one. So I'm keeping the pressure on my finger on the back to stop the nut from turning. So we can nip that up like that, and as you can see, I've got a wheel that still turns. Alright, it has a little bit of friction, but now I have no play, I have no end float. And the other thing that's worth noting here, if I fit this caliper, it's actually the wrong side, but you can see now that the disc is centered in the caliper, whereas before it was way out forward. So just a few little mods there. You don't have to spend any money, you just have to take a little bit of time. But I'm really pleased with how that's worked out. The only thing you have to be careful of is when you sand, when you remove material from the end of here, keep it square. So what I've done is just sand it and keep turning, so you know you don't end up putting a great big angle on it or something. If you do mess up, you could just come in and remove some of that, you know, get an end cutting blade and just remove some of that stub, and that'll shorten the stub suitably and get it perfect. So there we go. That is actually, this is actually, I'm just looking at what sides they are. That is that side, so that one is the wrong disc, so we'll be using one of our unmodified discs, but they should all be the same. And we'll just have a look and see that we are all the same. There we go. Tighten that up. Yeah, that one's slightly stiffer, so what I'm going to have to do is just remove some material from that stub at the back, as I say. But I mean, we don't really need the wheels to turn freely. We want them to turn, obviously, but we don't need them to turn freely. But it's better to have a stiff wheel than have wheels all over the place. So there we go. Hopefully you got something from that, and I'm sure it's not only this kit this applies to, but it's just sort of having a look out of the box and thinking about how you're going to go about building your model. So there we are. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all soon. Hopefully by now you've seen the one where we did the discs, and now you've seen the wheel bearings. So yeah, let's I call them wheel bearings, but you know what I mean. But there we go. These horrible, horrible screws. Right, I'll see you later. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.